Hello, Aussie music fans. Welcome to the very first episode of Silly Talks. I'm your host, Saba, from the Silly McQuiggles blog, and I'm super excited to launch this little venture of mine. I'm kicking off this podcast series with a chat to a Melbourne-based musician and producer, DZirè. DZirè is an independent artist that creates alternative music, broadly speaking, but her sound includes other influences as well, like soul, dark synth pop, and industrial vibes. The funny story is that, of all social media platforms, we connected on LinkedIn. After listening to DZirè's first EP, Love Train, and reading up on her, I thought it would be interesting to get to know her better. So we caught up virtually back in October, when Melbourne was still in its 6th lockdown. We began where you normally do, talking about DZirè's first steps in the music biz and what she's achieved so far. So don't go anywhere, because the Silly Talk is about to begin. So listen, first of all, if you can tell me a bit about you as a musician, how it all started for you, whether you have any background in music, if you play anywhere, if you've been gigging around, or, about what you've released and so on. So basically, if you could just sell yourself to me as a musician, then what would that pitch be?
Okay, to sell myself as a musician, I think it's more or less like, I feel like I just do music. I feel like in terms of creativity, it so happened to form into music, the music realm. It started off very much with my appreciation for music from a young age. I had music growing up. So my dad was a muso when I was younger. So, I would always hear him practicing, getting ready for gigs, writing music. So I was in a musical environment from as early as I can remember. And it sort of developed on from there. I did go to like a Steiner school, which is, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Rudolf Steiner, but it was very focused on, violin. You had to learn an instrument. So I always had that around me, that creative, just the creativity and music, and good music as well. So a lot of my inspiration, even just at a young age, listening to like Elvis Presley, listening to the Beatles, like all the old classic songs. I was exposed to that at a very young age. So I think starting to write music started so young. I think my first songs I was writing was probably when I was 12, 11 and 12. And that started with guitar. I never got lessons for guitar or too many of my instruments, like only like cello and violin. So a lot of the songwriting started in a really quite primitive way for me. So it would start it's so strange, because like it's not something that can really be taught, I think, when it comes to creating something new musically. Yeah. So it's very interesting. It started with me just obviously, playing acoustic guitar. I couldn't really quite get an electric guitar sound that I wanted. So I pressed the guitar strings really hard, and I could somehow make it sound a bit distorted. I recorded on a few tape machines and things like that. But so that's really where it started. It started really primitively. And it was just a great way for me to express myself. And it helped me at school a lot as well. So going into school, people were like, that's really sick, or that's really cool, playing the talent. And so for some reason, when I was young, I had a lot of confidence, and I was like, yeah, all right. And I'd get up and I'd play my songs, and it was everything I enjoyed. So to start with, that's sort of how it began. And then, progressing on from there, I always did music. I always created, always wrote a new song. And the best feeling is to show other songwriters when you write a new song. Mm-hmm. So I'd always be like, oh, Dad, check out this, or any friends, or I had a lot of music friends, oh, what do you reckon about this or this song? I've written a great song. So, it's been a huge part of my identity for as long as I can remember. And then I think for me, moving into the producing side of things is where it sort of fermented, where it got a bit more established, in terms of I was able to branch out and be more complex. So like there's elements of songs I like that I was able to put into a context and have complete creative control over everything. And that, for me, I think was where I was like, this is what I really want to do. This is what I enjoy. This is me being able to, just be as creative as I can be and be able to do things to a professional level on my own, So it was just, being able to sort of take the control and go into the production side of music to produce my own songs was the biggest step, because I had a lot of issues. I think, when you go into a studio, you kind of like, there's something you hear, like you're kind of like, oh, I don't like my voice like that. And you kind of, if you go to say it, they go, oh no, it's better this, you know what I mean? You get told a lot what's right and what's wrong. And to be able to go and discover the scope of that to the very end and to learn for yourself, like, oh no, I actually do like, and realize that you do know what's best instinctively for your art. That for me, has really, that's sort of what's brought me to where I am now in terms of feeling established and having developed.
Cool. So it looks like you're very much like a DIY musician. So you went through all the stages yourself, kind of like discovering all the elements of doing that. That's pretty cool. But I wanted to hang on to what you said about your dad. What's it like to grow up in a, let's say, in a way, kind of musical background? And also, I saw a post on your Facebook, I think, where you had a photo with your dad and you said, that you work with him as well. So is it easy, or like, does it help you when you work with him? Because I can imagine that obviously he praises a lot of your work, but he can be also the harshest critic. So what's it like to work with family in that context for you?
Oh my God, it has its ups and downs. I'm not going to lie. There's been times where I'm just like, Dad's lost the plot. He doesn't know what he's talking about. You know what I mean? Like we have definitely disagreements, but the main thing is that we have each other's best interest. So therefore, you're going to be in a better position to think, you know what? Maybe I do need to re-question what I feel so gung-ho about. So it does give you that really good compromising ability working with family, because you do trust their opinion, you trust they have the best, intentions. It's not so much it's a time limit, it's a money thing. You've paid for the studio time. It's coming from a place of, no, this is what I truly believe is best for this song. So it is good, and it is tricky at times too, because you're very much having to really think about it. But at the end of the day, I think my dad is like, it's your song. So, you have your veto by, at the end of the day. But his contribution, I think my first EP that we did, that was very heavy dad's production. And then coming into the next EP, which I'm going to be releasing, which is very, it's a completely different vibe, but that's all my production. And he's coming in just as the mixing engineer at the end. So, so it's funny because the collaboration for both projects are very heavy. He started the last one in 2017, and then this one's predominantly my production, with him just helping, with the final touches. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Are you guys into the same kind of genres of music, or are you completely different? So you're into this and he's into that, and then you kind of try to compromise, or is it like the same vibe, more or less?
There's literally no one closer in this world that I could say has the same and feels the same about music as my dad and me. Like, we are completely in sync with that. Like, I know that there'll be a day where I'll be, I don't know, there'll just be a song that comes on and there's those moments where it hits you. Like, for me, it's usually old soul music. It doesn't even necessarily have to be really related to my music or my genre, but sometimes there's just that one song and I'm like, that song is just it's what life is about. I'll find a song that gives me that feeling, and I feel like, if we were to shoot it up into space and to explain to aliens what humans feel, it would be that song. And I'll send it to my dad and I'll be like, Dad, isn't this just everything? And he'll always respond back with, Desi, that is what it's all about. Do you know what I mean? So we have that complete connection with music and, identifying music that we enjoy or that we think is, like an art form for this era of life,
Cool. DZirè is also a producer, and in part 2 of our Silly Talk, she introduced me to her collaborative music project, DZirè Music. I wanted to ask you about the producing bit. So you do everything yourself. So you write the songs, you produce them, you record them, everything, and your dad does the mastering and mixing and so on. So it stays in the house, so to speak. So you don't let anyone else touch it. So it's just you.
Yeah,
Is that
it's
right?
just me. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. And do you produce for anyone else, or is it just for yourself for the moment?
Yeah, so that's what I guess the business is
Exactly.
on the side. So that is, that is starting. I mean, there are a few artists that I've done some producing for, which is what's made me start this start this business as a whole. And it's definitely, it's definitely something at the beginning stages in terms of producing other artists. But I super enjoy it because a lot of people that are sort of interested or come and inquire or that I work with are coming through seeing the work I've done as an artist. So it's kind of, it's tying in with what I'm about. So it's quite organic, in terms of working with the artists that want to work with me. It feels very collaboratory, and it feels very a part of who I am to do that also.
Okay. So you said the business is at the kind of like beginning stages. Yeah. So does it mean that you've already established it and you've got artists that come to you, or is it, you've established and you're kind of waiting on things to come to you, and, where is that at? Because I couldn't find anything about it, which led me to kind of thinking that, it's just like at the inception kind of conception place, but you would know better. So
no, absolutely. I think just with look, I've got through university. Obviously, I went to I did uni with producing, so I have a few networks through there. So there's a couple of people that will say, "Hey, look, can we do a collaboration? Can I sing on this?" So I do some work in terms of doing vocals for people and their songs. So there's a lot of collaboration as well. But more or less, I've had a few people come through from my Instagram page. So I'm working with 2 artists at the moment, which are both female producers. So inspiring. So it's kind of it's not so much mentoring, but it's more or less I think they are interested to work with me because not only do they sort of want my input or to help or to be a part of the project, but also I think from the aspect that I'm a female doing it, and they, you know what I mean? So it's kind of, it's more of an uplifting kind of thing. I don't know. So those are just the few people that I've been working with. Also, my brother as well, who's an artist himself. So I'm doing producing for him as well. So and then there's it's at the moment it's through word of mouth. It's just through the small little networks I have that I've been doing work. So so that's where it started. And I mean, it's at the beginning stages. I have a website that's just in the process of being made. So then it's just going to filter through, inquiries. And it's great because my dad as well, he can obviously do, if I have too many projects on at once, then there's people have, references because they can hear the songs and be like, oh, cool. That's like my dad's production. And so, so that's sort of where it's at in terms of business stage.
Okay, so do you want it to be your future career, and do you want to completely focus on music? I'm not sure what you do on the side, or if the music is your main focus now and you can sort of, kind of make a living of it. I know it's difficult, but do you want it to be like your main thing in the future, or, is it just like a hobby for you at this stage as well?
So look, the music business, that is what my living is. So that is what I'm moving into. So I do, like at the moment in terms of money, I do things on Fiverr, like, voiceovers and stuff to do within the audio scope. But my focus is and my motivation and my goal is always purely creativity, right? So that would be being an artist. And I find that I am able to be creative when it comes to kind of creatively directing other people's projects as well. So I get the same, feeling as when I do my own projects as I get when I'm, say, putting like an artist that I know is really good with a producer who's really good, and knowing that from that level of, you know, how that project is going to turn out. But so yeah, look, for me, it's definitely being an artist is probably my main objective. Performing, singing, writing, that's who I am.
But I can
the other stuff is too, but it's more like it's secondary.
Sure. But I can, from what you've been telling me now, I can see that you're a networker as well. So you put people together when it comes to that. And I guess that's the way to go, and like through collaborations and stuff, you know, because that's what music is all about at the end of the day as well. So that's good to see. Okay. I don't know if it's just the wording, but it kind of got me interested in the way you put it. When you talk about DZirè music, and I'm just going to have to quote it. It says something that you want to refine the alternative music content that people bring to you. So like when you do the collaboration, it kind of sounds really technical, but I guess it can be broken down to very simple things. So what do you mean by like refine alternative music content? If you could just kind of, you know, explain it a bit better. Yeah.
Yeah. So refining alternative music content, I think music that comes from bedroom, music that's alternative in terms of maybe, just out of the box or different. I feel like there is gold in music like that to be like refurbished and made commercial. Like, do you know, like there's ideas of gold in music like that just because on the surface it's not translating to a commercial sound, it has the ability to be brought to life essentially. So that's what I see in music, and I could hear if someone sent me something so rough, played in the bedroom, you know, and like it to maybe a non-musical ear or anything, it would just be like, that is garbage. It's like I can see where it can go sometimes. So and it's very much comes from myself doing my own home studio, making something, you know, something sounding bad, and just being like, how can I, you know, because I listen all the time to professional music. I listen all the time to like your Billie Eilish's and her brother, for instance, like they've done a bedroom thing and they've made it so professional. So I think that for me is kind of, what I meant by that. Like, if that makes sense. It's kind of hard to explain, I guess.
Oh, it does make sense. And I think it is coaching at the end of the day, because you take your experiences, you know, from like doing the home recordings, and then you know how to make them professional, like you said. So I think it's great that you can speak from experience yourself. Amazing. In part 3 of our Silly Talk, DZirè and I discussed the ups and downs of being an independent artist and the things she finds challenging when promoting herself. Speaking of being independent and unsigned, is that a choice that you made at some point, or is it just that for the moment, because you're starting out, you want to be independent and then you wait and see? Because that's a question I ask everyone.
Yes, no, it's super interesting. So definitely. So look, my views have changed very much so since the Love Train. I mean, at that stage for me, it was like my biggest dream was to definitely you know, get signed. You know, that because it's about having all the resources and everybody believe in you to bring to life something that you've come up with, right? So like I mean, ultimately it's not like I could never be against that, because that's the dream, right? To be able to have all the resources to bring something of yours to life. So I would say it is definitely still a thing for me. However, it is not the be all end all for me. It is not what I think about every day as my number one aim. Like my number one aim is just to develop, you know, so that's like in the forefront. And then I know that with all that work that I put in to develop myself, the opportunities just come. So, it is definitely something that I would want to, eventually be signed. But for now, I guess I'm just happy to see where I can go on my own. You know, like it's
Because there are obviously benefits and downsides to being independent and signed. You know, so I can imagine that if you're signed, you've got all this platform, you know, that for marketing, and there's money behind you that, you know, the record label throws. What do you think are the downsides of being independent, or like what are the challenges for you, for instance, at this stage?
It's very it's not as time effective because you have to do everything yourself, right? So there's a huge part of me that likes doing that, to learn, to also establish myself. So if I like, a lot of people sort of view my music, or when I get people like it, it's kind of, you're establishing yourself enough so that if you were to be put in that position to be with a record label, there's not much that needs to be changed. You know what I mean? You've kind of, that's for me is the biggest thing. And yeah, the biggest downside following on from that would be to be signed to a label and to be lost creatively and and lose your identity as well. I think that's the biggest downside. Probably, I guess, there'd be time frames. You'd have to, you'd have to take into consideration a lot more people's opinions rather than just me and my dad's opinion. Like, like we talk about it being difficult arguing with my dad sometimes, like think like a team of like 10 people, and them all saying, this is the best song. And you're just like, that's my shittest song. Like, why? No, I don't care about money. I'm just an artist. So I think, all those things would be the downside. But you just navigate everything as it comes, I suppose.
And so, like you mentioned as well, and a lot of people that I've talked to recently, they mentioned that it's a real challenge for them when they're independent and unsigned, like that multitasking, that they have to do everything yourself. And I can imagine it is distracting as well, because obviously you guys are creatives. So what you want to ultimately concentrate on is being creative and being the artist that you are. So sing, write, whatever, perform. But then you have to do all this stuff behind. So like market yourself constantly, look for connections and stuff. So, and many of those things, I suppose you don't like doing. But you have to, because obviously if you want to establish yourself, then you have to put all the hard work. What's the least favorite part of being independent for you? Be honest.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Least favorite part, definitely like just doing so much. I think, look, PR's quite hard, doing the PR, just having to hustle on a sales front. So, calling places up, emailing places, oh God, it's more expensive as well, obviously. So you have to keep a day job to be able to then input and, pay for yourself, invest in yourself. So, working as an independent artist, I think, my least favorite is, I don't know. It's just having to do too much, and that's to do with, definitely the promoting of yourself. I find that the hardest is promoting myself, and really pushing it, because to create something, it's quite a vulnerable place, right? It's from quite a vulnerable place, and there's so much energy just to get that out, to record it, to feel good about it, to finish something is huge,
Mm-hmm.
And you just almost want to be like, there you go, world, like I'm exhausted, that was all I had. But like you have to then be like, this is worth your time, this is worth, you have to then push that extra bit, and it's a completely different mindset, and it is quite destructive to the original, to the art, and it stops you from, creating the new one, or
Mm-hmm.
It's constraining of where your time is best spent.
True. And I've got a few friends who are musicians as well, but on the side, they work, for instance, in marketing. And they always say the hardest part is to market yourself, because if you do it for someone else, then you can step away from that persona, and you kind of see it objectively. But it's really hard to kind of distance yourself from yourself in a way, to sell it objectively and stuff. So I can imagine it's super hard.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, you are in Melbourne, and Melbourne is one of the it is the music capital, live music capital of the world. So you've got a lot of different opportunities in Melbourne. Do you think it's kind of beneficial to you because you've got all this kind of like infrastructure and stuff, So I guess from my perspective, when I was living there, like there's not one night where you would not have a gig that, well, in the old days, obviously, that you wouldn't have like a big choice. And then sometimes I was like, oh my God, so many good people are playing. And I'm like, I just want to be there everywhere, but I can't. So do you think like being in Melbourne helps in a way, or is it the other way around? Because there's so much, offer, then you have to work so much harder because you have to kind of stand out from the crowd, so to speak.
Yeah, I think, in terms of the live scene, I think, look, I don't think it hinders. I don't think it hinders at all. I don't feel like, I don't feel like, I don't feel like I'm disadvantaged in a way because of other artists. I don't feel that. I think for me it helps. I like, honestly, because like more than like I can go to a gig, say there's a really good musician playing that I love, and it's in Melbourne, which is great because it's the music capital, and I can just go there and experience the music, and nothing's more inspiring than that. Than seeing a live performance that's great, and knowing that it's here, and knowing that this is a venue and this is a possibility, and that, okay, cool, I'll finish this and this is what I want to do or recreate, or you know what I mean? So for me, I think if anything, it is such a benefit to live in a place that has got all of those things available, just from an inspirational point of view, even, like it's just so inspiring to see like an awesome performance. I would say it's a good thing. Yeah.
Part 4 is the last one in this Silly Talk. Here we wondered whether musicians can also be successful business people, and why coaching is so important when it comes to creating a personal brand. Okay, just maybe to wrap it up, and then we can do an informal part as well. What do you think are the biggest challenges for the music business, like in the 21st century?
For me, what's been such a struggle, and as I was saying, when I first released my EP, it was having no understanding of what I meant to do. So look, I think artists are severely undereducated on the fact that when you now in this day and age want to start to become a musician, you're starting a business and you're starting a brand, essentially. Like, social media platforms is a thing. Even in this pandemic, really specifically, there's no live venues, there's no scouts. I think it doesn't need to be scary. I think the best way is if there was more mentorship, more people in that middle ground working with people between artist and label, mentors that can grab an artist and say, okay, let's dig deep creatively. What do you feel your brand is? What colors represent you, to create a visual? You know what I mean? There needs to be a business creative persona in between the artist, and the label. And that's what I hope to, if like, for instance, my business starts and, if there was something I could do to give back to other people from a mentoring perspective, it would be that middle ground. Like, have confidence in yourself. This is great. Let's grow on this. How can we build what you're trying to talk about? How can we visually represent that? What can we do to, have that translated into something that is a business or a brand for you? Because that's how a creative person is going to view the business side, more like that, opposing to you have to have a following, you need to have a fan base, you need to have this to even be recognized. That said, that's too much. If it's just got to be approached differently. There is a middle ground, and there is just no avenue or no support for it. So that's what I had to learn anyway, to try find the fun in that side of promoting yourself, because it is a fun thing. It's just not pitched that way to anybody. Like, to be able to visually represent yourself, or to have to think of the idea, or to have to come up with a film clip, or, all of it is so it is so fun and it is so good and it's so part of it, but you just don't know you have to do that. Like, it's just, yeah, it's an interesting place. So
yeah, and you're not the first one that says that. I mean, I talked to a lot of artists who are like, up and coming, and they're like, I'm completely lost. I don't know what to do. I don't know who I should talk to. I don't know, how to do this, that part of the business and that side of the business. So I can completely understand. And look, people come into the music industry kind of like from different avenues as well. So there are some people who go and study music management and they're artists as well. So it's much easier for them, obviously. But then there are people like you who are just creative and they want to do music, but not necessarily kind of study how it's done. So absolutely, like having that mentor would be a way to kind of, navigate that world. And I'm not sure if there are any programs. I mean, you've got Music Victoria and stuff. There are so many bodies in Australia that have something to do with music that maybe you should pitch it to them. And then
totally.
Or have like a buddy from like a musician who's kind of already down that road, and he knows or she knows what to do, so they could buddy up with you and kind of lead you. That's an idea for a business too, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but it's very interesting because with just even working with people on a production level, you even come up with the ideas there. So if I'm working with somebody, I'm just like, oh, this song, it's giving me this vibe. It's almost like a trip hop song. And then I'm like, you know what? A really good idea for this would be this. You know what I mean? So you find yourself when you're in the creative process really getting into somebody's, realm and world. And it's kind of like, it would be quite an easy transition with the knowledge I have now from having done it for myself and doing it, to be like, cool, this is the step plan from here. So it would be a great transition, and it'd be great for somebody to go to a producer who then can push it through from a social media schedule or a plan or all of that. That would be something that I'd look to entail when working with people, because it's not so black and white. It's so, you got to get your hands dirty to get things happening. Like it's like playing with clay. You know what I mean? It's not a streamlined thing. It's not linear. So
absolutely. Yeah. That's it for this episode, listeners. But I'm so not done talking to DZirè yet. Tune in on Thursday evening to hear the artist break down her creative process and share news about the new music she's been working on. In the episode notes, you'll find DZirè's contact details. Also, make sure to check out her Spotify profile and socials. And maybe you could even do a collaboration together. And if you liked this silly talk that you've just heard, hit the follow button, please, so you won't miss the future conversations. See you back here on Thursday for a Silly Encore with DZirè. Bye now!